confirmed the 51-year-old would be the first black woman to sit on the nation's highest court. So ABC7 is taking a deeper dive into this historic hearing process. We brought in our legal expert, Liane Jackson, to discuss day 3 of the SCOTUS nominee hearings. Liane is editor and columnist for the American Bar Association, lecturer for Northwestern University Ethics and Law. She also authors her blog, moneypowerlaw.com. Welcome, Liane.
All right. So
thank you. Thanks for having me, Nurse.
We're happy you're here. So for Proof, Liane, talk to us about why this is such a historic nomination.
Well, as everyone has talked about, she's the first black woman to be nominated to the Supreme Court, and barring something exceptional happening, she will be confirmed to the court. However, her nomination is historic in other aspects that people don't talk about quite as much. As we've talked about, as you've heard about in her background, she was a former federal public defender. That means she did indigent defense. And right now we have 4 former prosecutors sitting on the court. But what we need more of is diversity of thought, not just diversity of color, gender, and that sort of thing. But we also need people who are thinking outside of the box, thinking in different ways. It can't be just the same mold. And in the 232-year history of the court, we've had only 2 justices who were black, 1 was Hispanic, 5 were women. So it really is about time that we add diversity, again, in all aspects to the highest court in the land.
So, Liane, there's a lot of talk that Judge Jackson is extraordinarily qualified for the Supreme Court, and some even claiming she's more qualified than the other Supreme Court justices. Can you talk about that and her unique background? You kind of touched on it, but what do you think about what they're saying that she could bring to the table?
Well, I think it would be hard to find a candidate more qualified than Judge Jackson to sit on the Supreme Court. She's a Harvard undergrad, Harvard Law School, editor of the Harvard Law Review. She clerked for Justice Breyer. She clerked for 3 federal judges, in fact. She was a federal judge for 8 years, and she served 1 year on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. She mentioned her family is former law enforcement, so she's been a federal public defender. She's seen both sides. She's seen the law and order side. She's seen the criminal justice reform side that's needed, very badly needed. So her credentials really are beyond reproach. And I think you've seen from both sides of the aisle the respect for her brilliance, and that people are acknowledging that she is uber qualified and more than qualified to sit on the Supreme Court.
Now, on the other side, there are criticisms of Ketanji Jackson, opponents grilling her on critical race theory, her religious views, and a New York Times article quoting one person saying she coddled criminals and embraces woke education. What is your take on this?
Well, I think a lot of it is really just background noise because during these hearings, people need something to say. As I mentioned, she's pretty much unimpeachable in terms of her qualifications. I think if you line item anyone's jurisprudence over the course of decades of their career, you can find something to nitpick. But a lot of this is red herrings. A lot of it is pandering to the base. A lot of people are up for re-election. A lot of Congress people who are throwing some of these barbs are. And I think it's a great live opportunity for people to do so. But I will say this, in terms of some of the conversations about critical race theory, for example, that has become something that's used for fear-mongering, and most people can't define it, don't know what it is, have never seen it taught anywhere, and are using it really as a racist dog whistle. And it's unfortunate when these sorts of attacks are made against a candidate who, as she has said, has always applied the law, applies the Constitution, and is committed to impartial jurisprudence, and that's evident throughout her career.
Liane, we only have time for one more question. I want to ask this. How does this hearing compare to the other recent hearings we've watched, like Justice Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh, for example?
Yeah, Coney Barrett was rushed through. They wanted to make sure that they got her confirmed before the election, and they were able to do so. That was a very calm process. I'm sure most people remember Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation hearings were a lot more contentious with the allegations of sexual assault, and a lot of the vitriol that has spun over into what's happening now to some extent. You can see that there's still bad feelings across the aisle as to how a lot of this has happened, and not just Brett Kavanaugh or Coney Barrett, but going back years, there's been a lot of rancor that extends into these confirmation hearings because it's become politicized. And there's a need for Supreme Court reform and to depoliticize the Supreme Court. And that's what's next after the confirmation of Judge Jackson, which will likely happen soon, to the Supreme Court.
Liane Jackson, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time and insight and expertise into this timely topic. And you can find more topics like this on Liane Jackson's blog, moneypowerlaw.com. Check it out.
And still ahead.